Hello and welcome to yet another episode at You Are Human, a show attempting to decode human potential and possibilities by bringing you real stories, real heroes. I am indeed grateful to each one of you for tuning in, to listen to these amazing conversations, to learn and to get inspired in your own unique way. With all my heart, thank you. I have recently started studying the lives of some successful, influential people. And there's something that I came to notice is the path that they're walking on today is not something that they chose. Instead, the path chose them. They weren't like, hey, life, what do I make out of you? Instead, life said to them, come on in, let me show you what you have to do. My today's guest is one of them. At the age of 9, he started acting in plays in school, and he went ahead acting in theater and did modeling. But in college, he studied psychology and philosophy, which landed him a corporate job that landed him in Mumbai, wherein he did his first ad film that landed him his first Bollywood movie with none other than Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. This was in 2007. 14 years now, he's got over 40 movies and series under his belt. And in 2020, he came out to the world expressing his deep love relationship with music, wherein he launched his first song, Still on My Mind, followed by the Bhagwad Geeta song, and then 20 Days. He is a musician, actor, songwriter, and a lot more that we will figure out in this conversation. Please welcome Alexx on Nell. Hello, Alexx.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. It's my absolute pleasure to be here on your program. I think it's wonderful that you are trying to spread positivity, especially in this very difficult time. This difficult time that keeps stretching on. And I think it's cliche to keep talking about it as a difficult time, but I think positivity is something that is worthwhile spreading no matter what the circumstances. So thank you for the work that you're doing and the stories that you're highlighting and the positivity that you're spreading. And thank you for having me here on your show.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And I think it's been quite a few months, right? We discussing to do this. And
we've been going back and forth, for quite a while.
And I'm so grateful.
Both of us have been jetting around the world and trying to find the right time to sit down and chat. And as we were discussing, we were both in New York at the same time. But unfortunately didn't get a chance to meet. So now here we are talking across the Atlantic. I'm in the Netherlands and you're in New York City. So wonderful that technology has allowed us to meet virtually today.
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful that our planets and stars have aligned today to make this happen.
A lot of things had to come together to make this happen. So yes, pleasure to be here.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to have you here. So you said you were back in Netherlands, right? How's it there?
I am. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's a sunny day. It's a beautiful Thursday. Tomorrow I have the release of my next series, which is called Rekha. Mm-hmm. It's a Bengali project. And so I'm kind of in the midst of promoting that and talking about that project. And it was something that we shot, during the current situation. We were in Sikkim, taking all necessary precautions, masking and all of this. But it was during a time between the two waves in India where we could shoot. So we shot both in Kolkata and also at 0 Point in Sikkim, which is incredible. It's I think, don't quote me on these numbers, but it's about 3,000 meters above sea level. So, you would think that up there, in the shadow of snow-capped mountains and on the slopes of these beautiful valleys and in the midst of these frozen rivers, that you'd be most afraid of the cold. But actually, it's the lack of oxygen that's the most dangerous. So we were walking around with oxygen cans, not because of the pandemic, but because of the thin air, right. The lack of oxygen in the atmosphere. So it's very difficult to breathe. You just keep gasping and you can't really catch your breath. So it was an incredibly interesting project, also incredibly challenging to shoot. And I'm excited that now the industry is waking up after its slumber through this period.
Yeah.
and starting to release content, because I think people really want to watch new, fresh stuff.
Yeah, we
And
do.
this is a great time. This is a great time for it to come out. So that's my plug. I'm very excited for that project, and now we can move on.
Yes. No, thank you. The reason why I asked is, oh, you're in Netherlands, because I
Yeah.
was watching one of your interviews from last year, and you
Mm.
mentioned even last year, because of this pandemic and the lockdowns, you went from Mumbai to Netherlands to be with your mother. How is she doing, by the
Yep.
way? Is she okay?
She's well. So
Well,
my mother is Dutch, and that's my connection to the Netherlands. So that makes
okay.
me Dutch,
Okay.
although I don't speak Dutch. I consider myself to be a fake Dutch person, because I may look it, but then as soon as I open my mouth, people are like, "No, no, you're not Dutch." I don't have the accent. I don't speak the language, but I do live here whenever I'm not shooting. Because I want to spend as much time as I can with my mom. So
Right.
I came here. Well, I've come here so many times, but yeah, I
Hmm.
came here during the first lockdown in Mumbai to continue my work on my music. I also promoted Aria from here, which was a
Hmm.
hugely successful series on Disney
Yeah.
Plus. And I was back in Mumbai to promote Ruhi, which we were incredibly fortunate to have had the opportunity to release in theaters
Mm.
in that brief moment when theaters had
Right.
reopened
Right.
in between the two waves. And then after that, I came back to the Netherlands. I was in South Africa for a little bit, and then most recently in the U.S., where I was doing some work, some long pending family work, before coming back here to the Netherlands. So I've kind of been jetting all around,
Hmm.
trying to make the most of this time when I have a break from shooting.
Right.
Um, Actors' lives are not glamorous the way that one might think they are. It's a lot of getting very little sleep and waking up in different places, and trying to focus on your work, and trying to do the best you can, but oftentimes falling short because of dates and time and
Hmm.
time difference and all of this. So
Right.
this has been a break in what has been 14 years of just chock-a-block shooting, and it's given me the opportunity to focus on some other things like music and family, and for that I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm back here in the Netherlands, and it's a beautiful Thursday morning.
So, because in that interview, you mentioned that you're back home and you're setting up these solar panels, and everything in your
Yes.
house is from that. So, I wanted to know that
Yeah.
now that you're back in Netherlands, what else are you installing this time that is
You know what?
environment friendly?
Every time I come to the Netherlands, I try to improve my mom's quality of living, whether that's improve the house or improve the activities that she's involved in, or whatever else. But yeah, I think now that I think back at it on it, it's quite funny. I got really excited about the solar panels. If I was to go back and do something differently, I think that I'd want to get into the renewable energy sector.
Hmm.
I'd want to study it, and I'd want to be a part of it, because I really feel like it's something you can feel good about.
Right.
Because this is the biggest crisis facing humanity. I believe. I
Mm.
could be wrong, but that's my opinion. That's how I've read what's going
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah.
Obviously, the pandemic is huge. The pandemic is a serious threat to our health and safety. But it's something that I think that the world is mobilized to tackle because of its acute presence, because it's so oppressive. It's kept us at home, it's kept us from traveling, et cetera, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera.
Right.
I think that climate change is more insidious. It's
Hmm.
been slower to show its face. But now, with the wildfires in
Yes.
California and Australia, with ocean levels rising, with the toxicity of the air in a lot of places, I think people are now waking up to the fact that this is also a crisis and something that has to be dealt with. And one of the only
Absolutely.
ways that we can deal with it, because people aren't going to stop needing energy. Our energy needs are growing. The only way to address that is not to cut down on the use of energy, but to make our energy in a different way. And I think there's
Yeah.
a myriad of ways we can do that. So, in my little way, making this tiny house in the Netherlands into a little power plant of its own,
That's amazing.
I feel like we've done something kind of cool. So
Of
yeah,
course.
there's 16 panels on the roof, and the beautiful system that exists here, and this is in many places in the world, but what we do is we generate power all day and we sell it to the grid. And then when it's dark, we draw
Mm.
from the grid.
Mm.
So it becomes actually, we generate a surplus of energy in the house.
Right.
Because there's not always someone living here, but it's always generating power, which is
Yes.
cool. If I
That's
had
so
my way,
cool.
I'd put a windmill in the front yard too.
That is
Because
amazing.
I just think it's so cool to be, you know, generating energy passively,
Right.
and providing it to the grid, to the people that need it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, this trip, a few things not as interesting, but curtains needed to be hung. I want to put some lighting in the garden as well. But yeah, little things. You know, we also made sure to replace all the windows so that they hadn't been replaced since the house was built, which is about 60, 65, 70 years ago. So they're
Whoa.
very, very thin. So we replaced, and your listeners are going to be so bored, but I get excited about this stuff. So we replaced all the windows. We removed all the asbestos, which is a cancer-causing building material that was very popular in the 70s and 60s, because it was fire resistant and also it was insulative. So we had to remove all of that and put in all new walls and windows, a new roof. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but the point is that it's nice to improve the efficiency of a space.
Absolutely.
So that its impact on the environment is less, and if you can even, you know, make it a bit over efficient, if you can make
Right.
it a net producer of energy, for example, like this house is, it's wonderful. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the other day, I was speaking to my mother and I was telling her that we as human beings, our desires have no limitations. They're
That's true.
endless, they're
Yeah.
infinite. Whereas the planet Earth has its limitations, the resources have its limitations. So, where are we going to match up? Because my mother, she is the most environment friendly person that I have come across. She's such like
Wonderful.
energy saving since my childhood. If my tap would, you know, if the water would run for an extra time when I'm not using it, she would yell, "What are you doing? Turn the tap off." And I would get irritated. I'd be like, "What's wrong with her?" But now I realize that these are basic things. And she's such a minimalistic person. She would have like 4 dresses, which she wore till the time they did not get completely worn out. It's not like she couldn't afford clothes. But she's like, why do I need it? And up until now, that's how she is.
Opposite. My mom is the opposite. I don't think she threw out a tissue that we sneezed in. Everything was in the house in the US that I just recently came back from clearing out. Every report card, every term paper, every detention slip, in my case, because I was probably the naughtiest of the 3 kids. So yeah, everything was there. My mom was absolutely not a minimalist, and I have that gene in me to save everything, and I work against it every day. The only thing that I have too many of are guitars.
The guitars?
That's it. Yeah,
That's love.
I've got 1 in South Africa. I've got 3 in India. I've got 2 here in the Netherlands, and I have 3 on the way from the US because I've shipped everything. So yeah, too many guitars. I need to do something with them.
But that's passion. So I think that's all right.
Everything can be passion. I'm embarrassed by how many guitars. I should really divest some of them and stick with 1, my favorite. But yeah, other than that, I try to be very minimalistic because I see what happens when you save everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you a minimalistic person? No. You just said that you have so many guitars, but otherwise, are you?
Other than that, yes. Other than that, I have 4 jeans, 5 shirts. I've stopped going to award shows because, first of all, they never give me awards. They just want me to show up and smile. I don't know why, but it's okay. It's fine. I've come to terms with it. But also because I just don't have anything formal to wear anymore. I just don't. You know, I do have like a sports coat, but I'd wear that over jeans, and that's it. I'm not. I just don't dress up anymore. There was a time in my life when I did, and that time has passed.
Yeah.
I just can't be bothered to do it anymore.
I think we all evolve, and this is that phase. So that is great.
Perhaps.
I'm happy to hear that. Perhaps, yes. You studied philosophy in college. Why was that? Why were you inclined towards philosophy?
I don't know. I loved reading, and I miss reading. I read so much in university, and I have barely read since. I think philosophy was a wonderful um, uh, subject to study because it required that you read into what you were reading. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember some of our texts were this short, but
Mm.
the meaning behind them could have filled volumes.
Yes. Yeah.
Reading in between the lines, reading between the lines and between the words, and reading into the white space between the letters. It was
Mm.
really a wonderful way to expand my mind. And psychology, similarly,
Mm.
putting on the glasses of psychology to look at human behavior, to look at the way that also biologically how our brains work,
Yeah.
down to how receptors function in the brain, and how all of that shapes our perspective. I found philosophy and psychology to be very interesting ways to try to understand the world.
Right.
And I think that those two things, those two subjects, those two degrees, though I don't think they really gave me marketable skills in any sense, they gave me a framework within which to understand the world, and I think that helps me every day, especially when
Absolutely.
I'm looking at, especially when I'm looking at, whether it's music or film or working in series, characters and stories. I
Yeah.
think that philosophy and psychology really do help me um, to both understand them and also tell them.
Yeah.
So I feel as if I stumbled upon the right things to study,
That's
um,
great.
and uh, and it helps me every day, even though I'm not a philosopher or a psychologist.
Did you have any favorite philosopher? Like someone that you
Uh,
really like the works of?
uh, there are so many, but I think the field of existentialism,
Mm.
essentially that you create meaning,
Mm.
that things exist, stuff happens, but you need to find the meaning in it. Is kind of uh, how to put it. Finding the meaning in something is a bit incorrect. There
Mm.
is no inherent meaning in things. Like there's no good and there's no bad.
Mm.
Um, we create the meaning. We decide what is good and bad. Events happen,
Mm.
but we ascribe to it meaning. And I think that
Yeah.
world of philosophy, that particular vein of philosophy, the school of thought that is existentialism, really spoke to me,
Mm.
because things that I had gone through, I also had a hard time saying, what was right, what was wrong, and yeah, it was a very interesting way to look at the world, and I
Yeah.
think that people that rely on external stimuli, people
Mm.
that rely on rules that are set by others, that are either in books or even in religion and such. I think that oftentimes when they see those rules contradicted,
Right.
which they
Happens
are
a lot of
destined to
time, isn't
be,
it? Yeah.
then they lose their faith in everything. And
Mm.
so I think if you find that meaning within yourself, if you give meaning to things yourself,
Mm.
you are less likely to lose faith in the
Absolutely.
world and in
I love
yourself.
that. I love that.
Well, it's what has helped me in the face of difficult situations,
Mm.
and it is what has guided me um, over these past 25 years of my life. Yeah, as I was
Mm.
saying, I recently had a birthday before we started the interview, and someone asked how old I am, and I said I'm 25. I've been 25 for 15 years. I'm going to stick with 25 till I get it right. Then I move on to 26,
But you
and then
actually
maybe
gave in your
27.
age with that. You
Yes,
did.
I know I did, but you can
People who are
find it
good
on
at maths.
Wikipedia. You can find it on IMDb. Yeah, if you're bad at math, then I'm safe. But if you're good at math, it's not too hard. Um, so yeah, and it's I'm not a religious person. Obviously, for projects like Arya, where I had to speak in Sanskrit and
Sanskrit.
quote the Bhagwad Geeta, I find that there are extremely beautiful universal truths in the Bhagwad Geeta, just like in the Bible and the Quran and all over the place. But they're not universal truths because they're in those books. They're universal truths because we as people have given those things meanings, and we have given those
Absolutely.
things, we regard them as truths.
Yeah.
We've created that meaning. It
Yeah.
didn't just come out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and it's not objective. It's all subjective. But to be reminded that these beliefs are held across all religions in all places by all people just kind of gives them more credence. And I think that being exposed to all these different religions, despite the fact that I am agnostic, people might think, oh wow, well, we can't be friends because you're agnostic and I'm religious and following this religion, that religion. That's not true, because at the end of the day, I think that we have some fundamental things in common,
right?
Even if we decide that they come from different places. I think that they come from within. Others might think that they come from a holy book or that they come from above. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, we can agree on what those important things are.
Absolutely.
And that carries me a long way with
friends
that are Hindu or Sikh or Christian or Jewish or all religions.
Do you have any spiritual practice?
I do not.
You do not.
Except that I write music. For me, that's spirituality, because it's very weird. I'm also a bit of a contradiction, because I'll say all those things I just said, and then I'll also tell you that when I write music comes to me from somewhere. It comes to me out of nowhere. I don't know where. I'm not a great musician, but melodies come to me. I'll just be strumming a guitar, and a melody will come to me. And where does it come from? I don't know. So there's something else. I do believe, even though I'm not a spiritual person, that this isn't it. That there is energy. The way that I explain it to myself is there's energy that binds us all. It binds everything. And I don't think that any religion's really got it. I don't think that any religion can ever get it right. The closest thing that I regard to religion is science. I love physics. One of my favorite books is Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time. And I made the mistake of reading that book because I get very little time to read anything other than screenplays. But I would read that book whenever my plane was taking off and landing, when they tell you have to turn off your phone and your laptop. And that was terrible, because I was always kind of in a daze. And in those concepts, you really need a clear head to really understand them. But yeah, physics is beautiful. And I love the idea that, that science can be a religion, and it's not heresy to say that, in my opinion. I believe that we all, as many religions kind of allude to, that we're all connected.
Absolutely.
And the way that science explains that is we're all kind of made of the same stardust.
Right.
We're all made of the same matter that the whole universe is made of. We're all connected in that way. And I love that. And I think that, the way that some people talk about science, you could put them in a room with a theologian and you'd be like, wow, you're saying exactly the same thing.
Exactly. Yes.
You're just, you just seem to be not getting along when you really have more in common than might appear. So yeah, my spirituality, I love nature. I love being in the Netherlands and the US and in India, because there's so much beautiful nature. Some of my favorite things are just kind of being on the beach or being in the dunes here. Himachal Pradesh in India is where I first learned to paraglide, and just seeing the world from above and seeing that the beautiful foothills of the Himalayas at Bir Billing is
it's magical.
That to me it's divine. Yeah. So that's absolutely my spirituality.
Yeah.
Nature, music, these things are the two things that kind of tell me that there's something greater than us, but there's also something that binds us. But in terms of religion, like I said, I don't think that it's really been pinned down by any religion. But I think that that's my spirituality. That's my spiritualism is in music and nature.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. They say, right, that music is a religion too. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. You did the Bhagwad Gita song and you
Yeah.
played this character, Bob Wilson, in
Hmm.
Arya, and it was incredible. I mean,
Well, thank you.
the reason I started digging more on you is after the Bhagwad Gita song. Honestly, this is me telling you like how I was so curious about you. Firstly, when you were studying philosophy, were you
Mhm.
introduced to the Bhagavad Gita in
I
college?
was
You
actually,
were?
yeah.
Okay.
So I was just clearing out that house in the U.S. and I was going through a lot of my notes that I took in university, and um, I think one of the places where I was most uh, closely or extensively introduced to the Bhagavad Gita was through a course that I took on death and dying. I know that sounds macabre, but the idea of each region and religion and society, culture, the way that they deal with death and dying is very interesting. Whether it's the Egyptians to to Indians to Western Europeans and so on. So I'd studied a bit of the Bhagavad Gita then, although I'd completely forgotten about it. Until I rediscovered it. Ram Madhvani, the director, gave me 3 copies of the Bhagavad Gita, not just one. I did not read all 3, but it was interesting to be introduced to it in the context of a character, especially a character that's so different from me and yet at the same time quite similar, both
And
being a
it's such a full
musician. But
circle because you
yeah, it's
were,
weird.
yeah, because you did it about death in
Yep.
college, and your
Yep.
character's also talking about death and soul, isn't it?
Exactly. And I mean, whoever's going to see it has probably seen it by now. So spoiler alert, he also is the dealer of death. He does murder at the end of the series. So it's interesting how um, uh, this text that Bob memorizes, Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyatehatam, how he lives it, and how he personifies it, and how it also kind of becomes a metaphor for the whole series. It's
Right.
beautiful. I think
Yeah.
Ram Madhvani is a master of storytelling, and he could have just as easily given the Bob Wilson character to an Indian guy, and it would have made more sense. It would have been easier. But by having me portray Bob and having Bob kind of live the Bhagavad Gita just gave this completely different element to the
Absolutely.
whole
Yeah.
series,
Yeah.
and to have it kind of be a non-Indian
Mhm.
telling this kind of old Rajasthani family, this is what the Bhagavad Gita says. This
Says,
is
yeah.
this is what it teaches us. Just the dynamic was completely shifted, and
Hmm.
and and I love how he did that. And obviously, I'm extremely grateful he thought of me for the role. But I thought it was just such an unexpected decision that gave it so much more depth. Um,
Absolutely.
and uh, and so I was very thankful to do the role, and obviously, yeah, after singing the Bhagavad Gita and being reintroduced to it, it had a lot of resonance to the moment that we were living through when
Mm.
Arya released. These verses from the Bhagavad Gita, they're all about fighting. They're about fighting even against insurmountable odds. It's about um, that there's no sin in defeat, but there is sin in surrender.
Right.
Arjun is speaking with Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna is basically saying, look, you need to fight. Even if you think you're going to lose, you need to fight. And I
Yeah.
think that is a good lesson for all of us. Even if you think you're going to get COVID wearing a mask, you still need to wear a mask, because
Right.
that's the best defense we have. That's the weapon we have. So you fight. Even if you think you're going to be defeated, you still fight, because that's your duty. And
Mm.
and I thought that really spoke. It was obviously we were not shooting when COVID first hit. We'd already wrapped by the time the first wave began. The dubbing and so on, we had to complete. The post-production had to be completed during the pandemic. But these words from some 2,000 years ago were so appropriate for the
Yeah.
time in which it was being released,
Right.
that it was just really breathtaking
Yeah.
how appropriate they were. And they stick with me, and that's why I wrote a Bhagwad Gita song.
Yeah.
I took the words from the Bhagwad Gita and I created a melody, and I think that I think the two worked well together. For your viewers that haven't seen it, please check out Alexx Nell music on YouTube for a Bhagwad Gita song. We created that. I actually recorded it here in the Netherlands, and Debar Pito Saha and Delraz Bunsha recorded in Mumbai, and over those 7,000 kilometers, we were able to work together and create something that I'm very proud of.
That's amazing. So this is the Sankhya Yoga. You have taken the verses from the Sankhya Yoga. It's the second chapter in the Holy Bhagavad Gita. And as a matter of fact, when I was 18, I got a tattoo on my arm, and it is also from the second chapter, and it says from same chapter, and it says karma nivadikaraste, like it's your karma that you have to focus on. Don't focus on the fruits. So when I was 18, cool. I got it done. So, when I was just reading through, like when I was just looking at the Bhagavad Gita song, and I was like, hey, these are all from the second chapter. So, and I was like, hey, then I have something.
I'm going to play.
Yes, please.
So I never end up playing this song because, okay, in the world of my music, at least, I end up playing Still on My Mind and 20 Days a lot. But a Bhagavad Gita song, although of course it's out there and it's for anyone to hear, but I think that the people that connect with it connect very, very deeply with it. But the people that come to my channel to hear my music are expecting English music, so they don't listen to it as often. Although I would say that the most beautiful comments that I've received, I have received
the Bhagavad Gita song.
The Bhagwad Gita song, yeah. So
I've read people saying that please do the entire Holy Bhagavad Gita, and I think that is incredible. When I was reading the comments, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, that would be impossible for me, at least. It was hard enough just to get the pronunciation on this one. But, so I'll play the chorus.
Please.
Sukha dukhe samay kritava laba jaya jayo chato yundai yujasamba naivam papam vapsyasi attachetva mimam dharmyam sangramam na karishasi tata swadharmam kirtam cha hitva papam vapsyasi ya enam.
That was so amazing. You have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful voice, honestly.
So yeah, I don't play it very much, so that was very out of practice.
I think you should play it more.
It's beautiful. I know. I should play music more.
The aura is so different, right?
Yeah, music is my spirituality. So it's
see, you have a spiritual practice. You do.
That's true.
So we have the answer now. You do have a spiritual practice.
I'll know for our next discussion what my spiritual practice is. It's writing music.
That's amazing. See, we're all finding answers through conversations. Alexx, when I was researching about you, I was looking at some of your interviews, and you said that when you were younger and you picked up magazines and you picked up the guitar and you would look at Kurt Cobain. If he was on the cover, you'd pick up those magazines. And unfortunately, Kurt Cobain had a very devastating end. The industry that you are in, it has its pros and cons. And it's not like the world outside doesn't deal with mental health issues. But because if it's a celebrity, someone who's in the limelight, it stands out more. Yeah. So even when you look at Sushant Singh Rajput, like what happened to him, I want to know with your writings, with the two Bhagavad Gita song, because it's the verses from the Holy Bhagavad Gita, but the other two, there's something, and I feel like when you give out a music piece to the audience, like I will take it the way I see it. To each and every person, it's a different understanding. Maybe your intention would be different, but the vibe that I got from it is that it had a lot of sadness as an emotion in it. So, and you have said it, you've admitted that you only write when you're sad. I have two questions in it. Like, do you crave to be sad? Because your writing is beautiful. So is it like your guilty pleasure that, oh, I want to be sad so that I can write? That is number one. And number two, do you have your own mental health, you know, journey where you had to deal with it?
So, question number one, do I crave to be sad? I wouldn't put it that way. I would say that everyone gets sad, and we all have different ways of dealing with it. My way of dealing with sadness is the catharsis of creating something beautiful out of misery, and that is why my music is sad, because I don't sit down to write music when I'm happy. I sit down to write music when I'm dwelling on something, and I can't, go out with friends. I can't be a happy, productive person. I sit in a room and I dwell, and I happen to dwell while I'm holding a guitar and I'm strumming the guitar, and music happens. And out of that process, I fall in love with a melody and the poetry that is just coming out of me, and then I'm suddenly not happy, but um, I'm my energy is diverted from dwelling on sadness to creating something.
Is it
And
liberating?
so,
Does it
yes, so
liberate you in a
absolutely.
way? Mm-hmm.
That's how I work through my sadness. And so, although the songs are sad songs, they represent my journey through sadness. It is in creating the music that I deal with the underlying sadness. So I don't crave to be sad, but I think that we all are sad, and I think that this is a trap that and I can't obviously speak for Kurt Cobain or other musicians, but I think that if your creative process requires sadness, then I think that that's a trap, that you need sadness to be creative. And if you don't have sadness, then maybe you somehow create that sadness subconsciously or otherwise in order to fuel your creative process.
Right.
But for me, it is just being naturally occurring sadness that I've worked with. I also think that we all can fall in the trap of sabotaging ourselves from time to time. So maybe that's true of me as well. But yeah, I don't crave to be sad. Although, what a term that you used, guilty pleasure, or it is kind of, there's a sweetness in sadness. There's dwelling on something also can give you a bit of satisfaction, and that's also dangerous. But I'm thankful for the ability to write music as my way of working through sadness, and that leads into your next question. I think that we're all on a mental health journey. I think that we all, with few exceptions, we all struggle from time to time with negative emotions, with feelings of inadequacy. Even people that are at the pinnacle of their industry, even people that have all the success in the world, second guess their worth, their value, whether or not they are worthy of being where they are. So I'm no exception to that. I wouldn't say that anyone comes to a point where they've triumphed over mental health. I think it's always a process, and I'm lucky to work in the arts where we use those things. If I was an accountant, I think I'd have a harder time. I mean, I'd probably still write music. I'd be an accountant that writes music at night, and that would be my way to work through it. But I think that I'm lucky to have a way to work through it, and people that don't really need to find a way to work through it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, what happened with Sushant and what's happened with so many others is devastating, and I think that there's more attention that's being paid to mental health now than
Yeah,
has been in the
absolutely.
past, and I think
Hmm.
that's a good thing. Um, but I think it's still not something that the mainstream really takes as seriously
True.
as they could.
True.
When you've got a broken leg and no one tells you to go run a marathon, but when you have a broken heart, people are like, get over it.
Yeah.
So I think it's also because it's hard to quantify. It's hard. It's impossible to see um, uh,
Mm.
someone who it may be impossible to see if someone is having um, uh, emotional or mental difficulties. It's easier to hide perhaps than a broken hand or a broken leg. And I think that's perhaps why we oftentimes just don't see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the conversation's being had more than it has before,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it needs to be had, I think, a lot more than it is
Right.
being
Right.
currently.
There's still a long way to go. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think that as I mentioned, having an outlet or a way to process my grief has really helped. It happens to be my profession, um, but yeah, it's something that everyone needs.
Yeah. Absolutely. Mm. As per the Vedic philosophy, it says that there are different kind of gurus that help shape
Mhm.
the society, and
Right.
cinema media is one of them. So you have your parents, you have your teachers,
Mhm.
newspapers, media houses. Cinema, as I said, is one of the gurus to shape the society. With your music and with your films, do you take that conscious decision? Like, firstly, do you believe in this? That's number one. And number two, are we going to see like your journey moving towards a way that you would pick projects that are going to leave an impact on the society, or that are going to shape the minds of the youth, or the shape the minds of the society?
Well, first of all, to your question, do I believe that that's true? I think it absolutely is. I think that the reach of, I mean, especially in a place like India, and I consider India to be one of my homes. Absolutely, I see that the reach of cinema and entertainment can, in many places, be much more significant than the reach of education.
Mm.
Traditional education. I think that kids are perhaps more influenced by Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan than they are by most of their teachers,
Yes,
and I think
true.
that they then have upon their shoulders a responsibility um, to take that seriously. That they are essentially educating the youth of a country, and Alexx is not that significant. But I like to see when there are positive social messages in my projects. I don't necessarily search for that because I also understand that that is not always going to be there,
Hmm.
and the right professional decision isn't always perhaps the one that carries the heaviest social responsibility.
Right.
I think that's true for most actors. You see. I don't want to. I'm not going to name names, but you see a lot of heroines in Hindi cinema and Bollywood specifically performing item numbers that perhaps are not the most socially responsible.
Hmm.
You see a lot of heroes performing roles where it's borderline stalking or um, um, how to put it kindly, um, not quite gentlemanly behavior, so to speak,
Yes.
that they're engaged in while pursuing the heroine. So, I think that entertainment does have a responsibility when you recognize that it's being consumed, and that is from by whom it's being consumed, and how and where and to what extent, and the interplay between education and social upliftment and social education and so on is there. But a lot of what I'm involved in is just storytelling.
Yeah.
And so whereas there is, a recognition that it is, you know, being consumed around the world, uh, I don't always think of the social implications. Although there
Right.
have been times in the past when I've simply said no to projects where I just feel as if it's not, um, it, it's not healthy.
Hmm.
Either the story or the portrayal, the writing, or the people making it are just
Hmm.
people I don't want to be associated with. So I've made those decisions. When I see that it's bad, I will say no, but I don't necessarily require that all my projects um, push for, you know a positive social agenda.
Hmm.
It's not possible.
Hmm.
And I think that storytelling doesn't necessarily have to be, um,
Absolutely.
something that uh, is overtly trying to, push an agenda.
Right.
But yeah, there have been times when I've just been like, yeah, no, this is obviously not something I want to be associated with. and
Right.
and that's every artist's
Yeah.
option, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
This is
thank you.
I would love to say that I would love to be in the position of a Amir Khan and say, look, I want all of my um, big blockbuster, huge budget films to carry a social message that improves society at large. And
Hmm.
I think Amir Khan is an example of someone who does actually look to,
Right.
in many cases,
Hmm.
whether it's Three Idiots or a few of his others that I really enjoyed, where he says, okay, we can incorporate a positive
Yeah.
social message, so why
Yeah.
not? I
Hmm.
think that entertainment errs, unfortunately, more on the opposite side, whereas where the discussion is, well, we could include a positive social message, but why?
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but
Hmm.
sometimes that should never even come up. I mean, oftentimes you're telling a story, a historical story, like Urumi, for example, where I played Vasco da Gama, where you can put a social message
Yeah.
in it, but
Yeah.
you're retelling what
Hmm.
happened in history, or
Hmm.
for example, Mayor Charles. That's
Yes.
another wonderful film that, it's a story about a pretty terrible guy and some
Yeah.
events that unfold. So um, yeah, it's a difficult question, but I think that there's a place for social messaging in a lot of films, and then there's no place in others, and then in some, the social messaging is just terrible, and I think that those
Right.
films should never be made.
Hmm.
And that third group is the ones that I kind of opt out of, but I don't necessarily kind of require that my projects have positive social messaging. Just if it's negative, or if it just seems wrong, or if it's very sexist, or xenophobic, or racist, then I tend to just steer clear. But thankfully, I'm just not really approached by projects like that so often, which is good. Um, but yeah, that's my more condensed answer.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. And Mayor Charles is one of my favorite movies. I love that
It's one of
movie.
my favorite movies too. I love that movie, and it's got
It's
such an amazing
incredible.
cast.
Yeah.
Mayor Charles, and it had such a phenomenal cast: Randeep Hooda, Richard Chadha, Adil Hussain, who's gone on to
Yes.
do
Yeah.
incredible things.
Yeah.
And similar to Chittagong, which is one of my first films, or probably my fifth or sixth film, where Rajkumar Rao and I were in that, and we've done 3 projects since. But I mean, from Manoj Bajpayee, Barry John, Nawazuddin Siddiqui. I mean, so there are a few of these films, and Chittagong was one of them, and Mayor Charles was another, where it was almost the launch pad for some of the most influential actors of my generation. And I'm saying that kind of give and take a bit, to have really shown themselves as
Hmm.
phenomenal actors. And I think Arya is another one.
Yeah.
I think that you're
Yeah.
going to see a lot of the actors from Aria do phenomenal things, just like Adil Hussain from Mayor Charles went on to do phenomenal things. I think
Yes.
he was even in Star Trek recently. So yeah, it's those are a few of my favorite movies and series.
I actually, sorry, I actually went up to watching Arya after the Bhagwad Gita song.
Oh,
I will tell you
cool.
that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
really glad. Bhagwad
Yeah.
Gita song is different. It's my
I
own
know. I
way
know.
of but what Vishal Khurana did with the Bhagwad Gita in Arya, in
Right.
especially episode 9, it's just breathtaking.
It's amazing.
He's an incredible musician. I'm just a singer songwriter guitarist.
Yeah.
He has command of so many instruments that and he has them at his disposal, and he was able to make something just spine chilling and beautiful at the same
Right.
time.
Right.
He's a musical genius.
We
Love
loved
working with
it.
him.
My parents and I would watch it. So we absolutely
Awesome.
loved it. So thank you for creating
Awesome.
something that fabulous. Okay. I have a set of questions for you, which you could
Mhm.
answer in one sentence or a word. That's up to you.
I think you've seen that I answer in paragraphs, but yeah, let's try. I'll try to answer in a word.
It's totally up to you. Feel free, however you feel. We will just play along. Okay. I have written them down. So I want to know that what is your fear? Like, do you have any fear in life? Anything that you're afraid of?
Lots of fears in life. I think that my strongest fear is there's a few. I want to do right by my mother. She worked so hard and she gave so much to us as children, and I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to reciprocate that now that I'm older and I can see a little more clearly everything that she sacrificed. But also, I fear that I don't have the time to do all the things that I want to do. Um,
Hmm.
we talked about paragliding earlier. I just started paragliding about a year ago, and I've fallen in love with it, and I want to do more of it. And I know that there's a million other things that I want to do, and I fear that I am running out of time. So I feel if you were to look at the way that I live my life, you'd think, why is he always in a hurry? I'm always in a hurry because there's so much to do.
There's so much to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally, totally get that. So, because you talked about there's so much to do, right? So, I feel like it's tragic and it's amazing that how we walk on this planet with just using a fraction of our potential if we calculate the amount of time that we invest in things which are doing no good to us. So, I say it's tragic because we're wasting time, and I say it's amazing because we have the opportunity to create so much more. So you are a musician, you are an actor, you're a paraglider, you are someone who loves the environment, you're a handyman as well, if I can say that
I
way.
try to
You
be.
try to be.
Yeah.
So what more do you, the fraction, do you want to increase it to what more ahead?
Well, what I really want to do is the pandemic has obviously gotten in the way of the release of projects. But my goal is to, whenever I have a film release, release one of my songs.
Hmm.
And then after the next release another song, because I really want to exercise both these sides of my personality, the music side and the acting side.
Hmm.
And I kind of want to bring them on parody. I know I've neglected music for so long, and it's for a number of reasons. I was engaged with a major music label for a long time, and that held up the release of my music. I finally got my music back, and now that I have it back, I have the opportunity to do what I want with it, and so I can release it whenever I want, which is great. But I feel like I've neglected it for so long that now I need to kind of overcompensate on the side of music. So
Right.
so now my goal, yes, is to get my music out every time I have a film release, to get a song out. And I'm overwhelmed by the positivity and the support that I've received for the. So yeah, that's something that I'm looking to do more of. I really want to get my music out because it's been waiting inside for so long, and that's made me very sad to have it sitting inside without it being out into the world. I mean, there's the thing about art, at least for me, is that it's not enough just to make a film or write a song. You want it to get out there in the world.
Right.
Something you said a moment ago was that when someone hears a song, they're going to think something completely different, and that's true. The meaning is different for every person that
Right.
experiences a song,
Yeah.
much more so than film. I think film with its narrative form kind of means the same thing to most people. We have emotions that are tied up in the stories that are told, but you and I go to a movie theater and we come out with essentially the same
Right.
story.
Right.
Whereas if you and I listen to a song, we come out with completely different experiences
Hmm.
based on the experiences we bring to the song.
Yeah.
So that is the beautiful thing about music for me. One of the beautiful things about music is that it means an infinite number of different things
Hmm.
to every person that
Absolutely.
experiences it.
Yeah.
So yeah, music is very fundamentally me, whereas my films are a collaboration between myself, a director, producer, other actors, and so on. But music is just me. It's just me, and that's what makes it terrifying, and it's also what makes it rewarding.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's one thing that I need to do more of, yes, there's the paragliding
Mhm.
and there's spending time with mom, which I'm doing. But artistically, it's music.
You spoke so much about your mother, and I heard in one of her interviews that she's raised you and your sister, since a young age, all by herself.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
what is that one quality that you have of your mother, and what is the one quality that you wish?
I have perseverance. I may whine about it and complain about it, but I will keep going until it's done.
Hmm.
I will keep pushing until I get the result that I need, whether that's in music or film or any other part of my life. And my mom had to have that in order to raise us on her
Right.
own. My father died when I was very young, so it wasn't a choice. It
Hmm.
was just what the world flung at her, and she did an exceptional job. My sister is an accomplished translator. I have a brother that I don't really talk about too much, but he's a doctor. And I am the black sheep of the family. I'm an artist. But she did a great job. Perseverance, I think, is what
You
what
have.
what got her there. What I don't have is language. I wish I could speak languages like my mother. Um, she knew 5 or 6 languages. Being from a small country, the Netherlands, they can't just rely on Dutch. They have to learn the languages of all the countries around them: Germany, Italy, France, but also English to be internationally understood. She moved to the US when she was, I think, 16 or 17, and picked up English. She was fluent in English. So the language gene I do not have. My sister has it in spades. My sister is a professional translator, so she can speak languages flawlessly. I cannot. So that is what I wish that I had, because I think that the ability to connect with people in their
Hmm.
language is something that cannot be overestimated
Absolutely.
as a skill fundamental to creating relationships. It's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to singing in Hindi. It's one of the reasons I was so excited to have released a song in Sanskrit, because I think that when you speak to people in a language that they hold dear, and how
Right.
can you hold anything more dear than the language that you've grown up
Absolutely.
with and
Hmm.
speak every day, then you communicate actually, ironically, beyond language.
Hmm.
When you show that effort, and you connect with them in that way, you're you're saying more than just the words.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What's your most valued possession that you have, other than your guitars? I'm sure they're super valued.
That's a hard one. I don't know. I would have to say that it's I don't know. I mean, the things that come to mind are my phone and my guitar, because they allow me to create and to communicate. Um, and being someone that has spent the last few years divesting everything that he owns, I was living in Mumbai, and I learned that my mother was unwell. So I went to the US and saw the situation, returned to Mumbai, and I gave away everything I owned, because I couldn't see spending the time or effort trying to sell things, because I didn't want to be haggling over 500 rupees here and there, and the
Hmm.
time involved is excessive. So I gave everything to friends that I knew would need them, like my refrigerator, my television, my microwave, all of that stuff. And then I shipped a lot of it to the US. So I emptied the house in Bombay. Then when I went to the US, I realized that my mom couldn't really live on her own. So I began the process of emptying that house, came to the Netherlands, where we had a house, but it was full of stuff. So I began emptying that house. And then I went back to the US and so on. I've been emptying houses for about 5 years. And one of the things that I've learned is that I should really not accumulate stuff. So when we talk about the things that are most valuable to me, or the one thing that's most valuable, I have a hard time with things nowadays, because I've been trying to get rid of things so much for the past 5 years, that I would say the only things that I'm really appreciative of are the things that allow me to communicate with the people that mean the most to me. So as crazy as that sounds, because it's technology, my phone and my laptop are the most valuable to me, not because of what they are, but because of what they
can do. Yeah.
Yeah, because of the way that they allow me to connect with my friends, my family, my mom, etc.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What excites you in life?
Opportunity, adventure, yeah, experiences. As I mentioned, divesting all of the things that I owned over these past few years has made me kind of refocus my sights on what really does matter. You know, that a china set doesn't matter, a dining room table doesn't matter. Even things that I'm in love with, like antique furniture, and I love stories. So an antique chair has a story. Yeah, it has a story, absolutely, and a story that is 150 years old or more. This cabinet behind me has a story. Unfortunately, I don't know the story, but it has a story. Yeah. I don't know if I'll ever know the story. I probably won't. But things like that, I have that gene that my mom has, where I love stuff. And left to my own devices, I would accumulate a lot of stuff. But I need to work against that gene every day to accumulate as little stuff as possible. So I get excited more nowadays because I've gotten into this habit about experiences, adventures, opportunities than I do about stuff. I know a lot of people think, oh, when I get that Mercedes or when I get that laptop or even that guitar, my life is going to be so much better. But in my experience, it isn't. Yeah. It's the experiences that make everything much more exciting.
Absolutely. And that's what matters at the end.
I think so.
Lastly, how would you want to be remembered?
Oh, wow. No one's ever asked me that question before. I would like to be remembered as someone who passionately did that which he loved and took care of the people that meant the most to him.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Alex. And I think that's what everyone should be focusing on.
I think so. So get out there and do what you love.
Do what you love, and that's it. And take care of the people that love you. And that's life. Absolutely. So simple, right? So simple, isn't it?
So simple,
and be complicated.
So incredibly hard to execute. Because life gets in the way, right?
That's the irony. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alex. This was amazing. I had a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful start to this incredible day with this amazing conversation with you. And I cannot thank you enough for giving me your time.
Jagruti. I appreciate your time. I appreciate all that you do to spread positivity with your program. And I look forward to speaking again soon.
I hope so too. Thank you so much. If there is anything you would like to say to the audiences as a last sign off, you may please.
Do what you love.
Do what you love. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If it has inspired you, even slightly, then please like, share, and comment. See you in the next one. Until then, remember, our time is limited. Let's make the most of it. Keep watching You Are Human on YouTube and listen to these amazing conversations on Spotify and other audio platforms.